Hi, I'm Gavin with Haverstick Designs, and welcome back to the S.O.U.N.D Project. So we have Erin Barra here with us today, taking time out of her busy schedule at NAMM. I really appreciate you being here, and thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Super excited to be here, having a little NAMM break to do the podcast.
Yeah, I always thought when I was inviting people to come do this that it would be like, oh man, I got to leave NAMM and I got to come over here. But it seems like everyone's been like, this is actually kind of a nice break. So.
It is. It's like the screaming into the void or the abyss at NAMM. So
it's a little quieter here, which is nice. But it's you're one of the first people I thought of when we were going to do these remote sessions, and I guess we've known each other for maybe. Is it four years? Yeah. And you originally contacted or connected with me from Nate Edwards at Sweetwater. Yeah, and you were doing a project studio at your home.
Yep.
And we connected on that, and I helped you out with the acoustical treatment, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, I want everybody to kind of know who you are. And so if you could tell me a little bit about kind of your background and what you do, and we'll just kind of start there.
Sure. Well, today, if you were going to ask me what I do, I have a dual leadership position. So I'm the director of the popular music program at Arizona State University. Mm-hmm. And then simultaneously, I am the founder and the executive director of a global nonprofit called We Make Noise, mm-hmm. which has a presence in over 51 cities around the world, working towards gender parity and equity in music and technology spaces, because they can be a little male dominated.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's strange.
At least they tell me that. So I'm sort of, now I work in leadership in music education and music advocacy, but I don't, it's a very nonlinear path to arrive here, but I definitely grew up in a high fidelity sort of listening environment. My father was an audiophile. He still is. So we always had a room that was kind of about listening, and I knew a lot about concepts around acoustics and wiring of systems, sort of since like birth.
Wow, yeah.
And knew I was going to get into music, so I did a piano performance and a songwriting degree, which mm-hmm. It's like possibly the most unemployable thing you could decide to do.
Well, I almost went for musical theater, so like we're in the
you
same
landed
boat.
In the right place.
I went in the wrong direction. So,
although I think I could see you. I could see it.
Yeah,
I'm picturing it.
Yes, I did that in high school. I was just all about it, and then I went to New York and had workshops with actors there, and they were like, "This is the best job in the world if you can find one," and that was the end for me.
What?
I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I like stability. And luckily, I liked math and science, so engineering was the way to go. But
your side hustle became
yes. That's cool.
After musical theater, that's funny.
So piano performance and songwriting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was just like blindly kind of following my ears, and did the artist thing for quite some time in New York, mm-hmm. and would set goals for myself and then achieve them, and would just like dangle the carrot a little bit further every time, and was just never really satisfied or happy. And there was a lot of like just feeling of not being necessarily in control of my sound, mm-hmm. because nobody bothered. I mean, this was like the late 90s, early 2000s, but nobody bothered to teach songwriters about technology. And I mean, even still to this day, we sort of undervalue the role that music technology plays in our lives. Mm-hmm. So, completely self-taught via the internet, mm-hmm. in a time when the internet was not as robust of an information center.
Had to work a little harder. So
it would be like, weird guys in their basement making videos about how to do things in Ableton that weren't even necessarily correct.
Yes.
So,
but it's on the internet, so it's correct.
I mean, at the time it was so strange. This is like maybe 2005, mm-hmm. So I had to teach myself everything about music production, by interpolating truths through video triangulation, mm-hmm. and got really deeply into using DAWs, synthesis, sort of anything that had to do with processing audio at the time, and really never looked back started getting into more, consulting for different companies like Ableton, Moog, Isotope, Rolly. Like I've worked a lot in that music production space. And then got offered a job at Berklee College of Music in Boston because I was, quote, understood songwriting and technology.
Both.
Which is
the perfect marriage.
You wouldn't think that like those would be sort of the thing that unlocked this part of my career.
Yeah.
But then and all of a sudden I became an educator. And now I'm in, leadership.
How's being an educator, does that scratch the same itch as being an artist or no?
It did for a really long time. Yeah. I mean, I often speak about it in the same terms as when somebody's writing a song. It's about like something that I feel that I need to communicate to you through certain tools, melodies, lyrics, harmonies, rhythms, production, arrangement, and somehow deliver the message to you. And like education isn't too far of a reach. It's just like something that's from my mind to your mind, and what are the tools that I have to communicate that. So I don't really find it that different. It's just another version of communicating.
Well, it's also kind of as an artist, you can inspire others, and also as a teacher, you can as well.
For sure.
It's just and I think that's what's great about. I do enjoy teaching. If I didn't do engineering, I was going to probably do teaching. And so when I do seminars and things like that, it's really fun for me because it's something where you can make a difference and have someone else learn something that then is going to impact their career and their lives and everything like that. So
totally.
The move to Arizona State, was that a big jump to go from Berklee to there?
Yeah,
Did you go straight from Berklee to?
Yeah. Sight unseen, actually, when I sort of was toying with the idea of making the leap. That was March of 2020.
Yes.
When the world sort of
perfect timing
stopped. Yeah. So I had to decide to take the position without ever having visited Phoenix ever in my life.
Right.
So sight unseen, my whole family, we just picked up and moved across the country to Phoenix. And it's a different place than Boston for sure.
I grew up in Muncie, Indiana, and in high school, my dad's job got transferred to Las Vegas. And so I always tell people it was like seamless transition. It's like small town Indiana to Vegas. It's like
to the
whole
city of
world.
sin.
Yeah, right. So it was something. But yeah, do you like it out in Arizona?
I love it. Yeah. It's a great place.
I love the West. I mean, it's I went to school in Colorado, so that's probably my dream place to go back. But Arizona's great. So with your role at ASU, I know that you guys have some amazing studios there, and
we do.
Do you get involved with a lot of the recording sessions there, as far as, or is it more technical teaching versus like while students are actually creating?
Well, we have the space operates as a commercial space as well, and then we have a whole slew of student assistant engineers that work on those sessions. So it's more of like a hybrid academic / commercial space, which I think is really healthy actually for an institution. I definitely am teaching in that space, but more interestingly, I had so much to do with the design of the space and the choosing of the technology that was in there. And I still am deeply, sadly ingrained in its operations, which, sometimes is, especially when you're in a university, and I know you've worked with them, it's a unique set of parameters that you have to work within. And so I feel like I'm deeply entrenched in what's going on there, but it's not as much music making as I would like. It's so much about the operations. Yeah,
and it's funny how your role can morph, because like when I started this thing, I was doing everything and doing all the design work, and then now I'm still doing some design work, but it's a lot of review or management of people and things like that. And so it's like you still have to find ways to fill your cup in those ways. And so do you do a lot of things just personally, musically, to scratch that itch?
I try to. I also have 2 very young children.
So do I,
it's when I can, and I think you're right. It's like you have to find just things that give you joy in some sense. Like often I'll find myself writing another email and I'll be like, is this why I decided to do music? I can't remember anymore. Because like 90% of your job, all of a sudden, you're like, what is happening to me?
I get to the end of a day and I've been on 7 video calls and I'm like, I didn't do any actual
You did nothing.
work. I did. I helped people and answered questions, but I didn't actually accomplish any deliverables at the,
Yeah.
But it is, it's part of the job. And luckily I still enjoy all aspects of it. It's just, it changes, as you go. I never really thought I would have any employees, let alone 7. So it's just a different thing.
I definitely relate to that. But like somebody has to lead.
Yes.
And not everybody can do it. And there are so few women in my field, especially in leadership, that I honestly feel like even though when I'm not delivering anything, just me existing and being in that space, like I'm having sometimes even more of an impact than I am when I'm making music, just by facilitating other people to be seen or, playing this role in this space.
Yeah. No, it's super important. So talking about that with your personal space at home, it's a kind of a second bedroom, or maybe it was an office designed as an office at some point.
Somebody's bedroom, maybe. Yeah. There's a closet.
There's a closet. Yep. And yeah, it was really neat when Nate connected us, and you sent over some photos and diagrams, and we put together a treatment plan for you. And what was that whole process like? Had you done that before in other spaces, like treated your rooms, or is it?
I've been involved in the treating of professional recording studio spaces, but mostly working with John Stork from WSDG. We did the studios at ASU, and then I'd done some previous studios in New York, actually inside of an Airstream.
Oh, weird.
Which was a super unique and interesting project because everything was sort of, is it convex? Is the
it's concave.
Concave.
If it's a dome, those are usually bad for acoustics.
It was insane.
Yeah.
So I've definitely been engaged in the process before, but mostly those spaces are being built to task.
Yes.
And we had sort of the opposite experience.
Sure.
I remember when we were measuring the room, I sent you the dimensions, and it was like 3 by 3 by. It was like everything divisible by 3 or something.
It was, and
you're like, oh, this is basically the worst possible scenario.
I don't usually say worst. Everyone in the office jokes around about how when Gavin isn't happy with something, I say, that's not ideal. That's like, and then like, damn, Gavin's really lit up about it. No, it's but yeah, the dimensions were a challenge. I think that maybe, if I'm remembering correctly, that window on the front wall was a little off-centered with the room.
It was to the side, and it's a very tall room.
Tall room, yeah.
And it's basically like 6 feet. If I'm looking at the, like, from mixed position from my left to my right, it's probably 6 feet, and then 9 feet tall and 9 feet back.
Yeah, so 12 by 9 by 9. So anyone listening out there,
it's not ideal.
It's not ideal. And don't go seek out rooms of that size. But we made it work. It
sounds great.
Yeah, it does. It's I say that like I've been in the room. We did this completely remotely. I've never heard it, but you said that you're happy with it, so I'll take your word for it.
It was great. I documented, actually, if anybody's interested in seeing the process, I documented it on Instagram, and I only have one story highlights, and it's just me building my studio.
Yes. Yeah. It's great. Actually, we'll put a link in the description for your Instagram page, but yeah, go to the highlights, and you can actually see the's probably, I don't know, 60,
it's like
70,
an hour of video.
Yeah, it's really great for anyone who's like putting together their own home studio. It's really fun. I remember one of the big challenges was when everything arrived and you're just like, I'm just going to install this myself. And then you're like, actually, no, I'm not.
And I was like 7 months pregnant.
Right.
When it happened.
That is not.
I hired the guy, but it was over the holidays too. It took a long time. Like, just FYI, if you're buying a bunch of acoustic panels, it's coming freight.
Yes.
This is not like Amazon's just gonna pop it to your front door. Like, it was complicated just to even receive the shipment.
Sure.
And then getting the proper person to install. Like, if you're gonna do that on your own, you might want to think about hiring an integrator or somebody to help you with that portion of it.
Yeah, we used in that all products from Acoustical Fulfillment. You have some Fulfill panels in there, and you have some of the Flex 48s, which I designed and got a patent on.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's a diffuser when you want it to be, absorber when you want it to be, but it's also a bass trap when the diffuser piece is in. And yeah, it's like kind of fairly straightforward as far as you're hitting first reflection points, doing some bass trapping, cloud and above. But from where you started to where it was finished, when you go through that story on our Instagram, it's a really cool transformation to see it all come together.
It's a dead, dry space.
Yeah.
Now.
It helps. Before, I think you sent me some videos while you were in the room, or we had some Zoom conversations while you were in the room, and it was a little bit of an echo chamber. But
it was so bad.
Yeah.
It's when I'm in the room now, like I'll have the door open and I'll want to yell at my husband, who's in the other room. And if I'm in the room, he cannot.
He can't hear you. Yeah.
Be like, Caesar!
Yeah. So you don't know this, but he reached out to me and see if I could make that happen for him, and so I did. Yeah,
it was a unexpected side effect of having the room treated, and nobody outside the room can hear me screaming for my life.
That's a added. It's a special package we offer. So, so how much time do you get to spend in that room?
Oh,
do you get to spend enough?
All day Monday.
Okay,
I'm in there every single Monday. And then, anytime I'm working from home, I'm in there, but yeah, it's strange because the space is so gorgeous. The panels that I got it's a felt sort of finish, and it's this really cool color pattern, and then I painted the space to complement it. So it's like when you walk in, even just the panels and then the space being, dead like that, it feels great. And so I do a ton of just Zoom meetings in there too.
Yes.
And so I'm probably making sound in there, I'd say once a week.
Yeah.
But I'm Zooming in there all of the time.
Yeah.
And this is another unexpected thing, but when you're in a space like that, it changes the way people respond to me.
Yeah.
They'll be like, look, what's this room you're in? Like, that looks like an incredibly professional looking space. Wow, it sounds amazing. Like people are kind of always commenting on the space that I'm in.
Yes. That's the thing these days, is that like your background is really important, because when I'm on video calls all the time, and I have hexagon-shaped absorption panels on my back wall of varying thickness, and it's kind of an interesting pattern. And then I have my vinyl records set up, because I listen to vinyl while I work, and it's a vertical turntable, so the record's vertical instead of horizontal.
Interesting.
And then I have one of my Gretsch guitars on the wall, and it's always like people pick out things and they want to talk about, do you play guitar? And so it's become a thing even in the studios we design. People that want to do videos or a podcast or whatever, it's like, we really want there to be some visual interest in this part of the room because we're going to have it on video.
For sure.
So I'm glad that's helpful for you too.
I didn't think that it would be so visually important, but it really is.
Yeah.
And having a treated room is a status symbol in a lot of ways. It was something that I had always been so covetous of and desirable of, and I'd been renting my whole life.
Right.
And there's really only so much you can do. Like what I did to those walls cannot be undone.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I got the space, I was like, I've been waiting, a decade to do this. And now that I have it, it's incredibly meaningful. I worked very hard to be able to do something like that my whole life.
Yes.
And it's amazing when you have that.
It's awesome. So let's shift gears and talk about We Make Noise. Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization, how you started it, and kind of what it does today?
Sure. Well, for 11 years, we were known as Beats by Girls. And we started in 2013 in New York City when I started teaching beat making to middle school aged girls at a nonprofit called the Lower East Side Girls Club. And at the time, I was definitely just one of one, or at least it felt that way. Again, the internet was kind of a different place, but I was using a lot of digital technologies on stage at the time, and people were sort of identifying me as a person who was doing that, or a female who was doing that. They would call me the Ableton lady, which is in 2024 is maybe not going to fly in the same way, but I just was like, I never even intended to be centered in that way. I was just making music using tools. But I started doing a ton of consulting and private client work. And, at one point I looked around and noticed that every single person that I was working for was a woman. And they were giving me the same sort of dialogue and feedback about how it was making them feel powerful and like they were capable of doing, the thing that they wanted to do, and speaking to them in ways they could understand. And so, one day I just decided I'm getting like a lot of signs from the universe that people need me to be doing this stuff. So why don't I take a purposeful step into that role and sort of see what happens? And it was kind of almost instantaneous about when we were starting to raise money and, lay the foundation for what now is We Make Noise. 12 years later now, we have over 51 cities in the world.
That's awesome.
Where we program, and we're international. We're on 6 continents now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Now, when you started it, did you have a vision of it expanding to that extent, or was it more so local, like a local thing you were interested in?
I think that because there was a moment in time where somebody did attempt to sort of control the idea of the brand and the IP, because I had written the whole curriculum, and then we had this brand name, and there was a conversation about keeping it local to a specific site and location, and it being there and people coming there for this. And I did have this reaction that was like, I think everybody should be able to do this. Like, why can't everybody all over the world have access to these ideas and this concept and the sense of belonging and community?
Yeah.
And then, at the time, I think that person thought I was being incredibly naive and, perhaps presumptuous about what I was capable of doing. And yeah, I mean, now it's like, ha ha ha.
Yeah, I did it. I did it. Take that.
Yeah, totally.
So with that organization, I mean, obviously you have a full-time job at ASU, and then you have that as well. I'm guessing you have other people involved in that organization that help run things, and you're more overseeing. Is that? Do you have to travel a lot for that to those locations?
I do. Well, luckily, my position at Arizona State, I'm a tenure track faculty.
Okay.
So 40% of my my workload is my research and creative activity, if you will.
Yes.
And so all of that is actually We Make Noise.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So 40% of my ASU position really does manifest itself in this gender equity work.
That's perfect.
And so the other 60 is really teaching and administration at the university and running those programs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absolutely not just me doing these things. We have 8 of us that work for We Make Noise. Some of them are in Europe, some of them are in the US, some of them are from South America. So it's definitely a group effort.
Yeah, and how do people find out about We Make Noise? Like, what's the best way? We'll link any website links or Instagram or things like that.
Sure. So it's we-make-noise.org for the website. But the Instagram is wmn.global.
Okay.
And then all of our chapters, if you can see wmn.phoenix.madrid.barcelona, like any of the chapters can also be found on the internet, and it's just wmn and then the city or the place where they belong.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Like, I mean, your plate sounds pretty full, and then you have. Are you still doing like your own music as well? How much are you in the studio doing that?
Not as often as I'd like to be, Gavin.
No, you know what? I play in a band. We've done, a few albums over the years and some EPs and things. And when my son was born, my drummer said, like, hey, this is awesome. He's going to have this like huge rush of new songs, this inspiration. I've written like 2 songs in the last 8 years. I don't know why it is, but it's hard to find the time. I think too, maybe you'd agree with this in your life, but it's like what I do for a living is so technical and creative at the same time that sometimes at the end of the day I'm just maxed out,
For sure.
It's hard to then turn that side of my brain on.
I completely empathize with that. I have been writing and I have been making music. It's way slower than you would ever imagine. But I'm going to release probably this summer another record, which is just whatever I did over the past 8 years since I started having babies.
Yes.
Because it does slow you down. But I produced and mixed a song for Kimbra last year,
Nice.
which I'm incredibly excited about.
Yeah.
That was a very stressful mix because she's such an amazing, prolific artist, and her voice is so big that I really wanted to do it justice.
Yeah.
So I'm incredibly proud of that work. Similarly, I'm doing production and mixing for an artist named Madam Gandhi, who's on Sony right now. I really am only capable of like doing one project a year because of all these other things.
Sure.
And
so you got to make it count. And that's awesome.
And I work with a lot of music tech companies, and so it's very much about the technology. To your point, it's like it's a technical task, but there's a lot of creativity that comes with it. So Push 3 just came out. I've been doing work with Ableton, and so a lot of like a creative practice will come out of exploring new hardware, exploring new software.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to not get, to separate your own creativity from all the technical side of things. Because sometimes you can get bogged down in that, and then you're just worried about those things and not letting your brain just flow. But I think with you, obviously, you have such a mastery at these different programs and that you know it like the back of your hand. So it's like it's easier to then be creative with it. I think sometimes people get caught up in those technical details, or they get caught up in maybe being in a bad acoustical environment, and like none of these things sound right. And it's like if you can take care of all that stuff and just create, it can go a long way.
Never stopped me before I had the treatment, so
That's true.
I'm still going.
That's awesome. So at ASU, do you guys have students like from just around the world that come there, or around the U.S., or is it more like regionally?
We have almost 200 students, and I would say about half of them are from Arizona. It's a state school, so that juicy in-state tuition incentive. May all of our children go in-state.
Yeah, I went out of state, so
did I. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, that was.
And then the other half are from either within the United States, and we probably have 5 or 6 international students. The program's only been around for, this will be our 4th year.
Oh, wow.
So this is our first graduating class that has been there for all 4 years.
That's awesome. What kind of industries are they're trying to go into, or what kind of positions are they looking for, the ones that are graduating?
Well, I mean, I really believe that you don't just get to be a drummer anymore.
You don't. That's weird.
So it's, sad but true. They have to have diversified revenue streams as working professionals in the music industry.
Yeah.
And so the program is it's more about breadth than it is about depth. So, be dangerous at 3 things, and then get out there and continue to learn for the rest of your life, because that's what's going to be required of you.
Sure.
So a lot of the students are, I actually brought a recent grad with me here. So she does do some work on the nonprofit side with us at We Make Noise. She teaches at a local after-school programming thing. She's gigging a lot.
Sure.
There's so much cultural development happening in Phoenix right now. So I'd say actually almost every single student that we just graduated last year is still in Phoenix, and that probably 75% of them are working full-time in the Phoenix music industry right now.
That's awesome.
Doing an incredibly diverse, set of things, from live sound, stage technology, studio work, teaching, performance, all of it.
Is the program both audio technology and music performance, or is it it does both?
Yeah, we have a non-performer track and a performer track. So there's 7 subspecialties that range from like business, sound design, composition arrangement, studio, stage technology, like all of it. Yeah.
Nice. That is awesome. And so here at the NAMM show, what are you excited to see?
I am excited to see the people.
Yeah.
I've been that person on a trade floor before.
Yeah.
And it's a really small community when you really get down to it. Yeah. And there's a lot of musical chairs, like, this person used to be at Stephen Slate, and now they're at Apogee. And then, just sort of catching up, especially post 2021, when there was no NAMM, to see people again. It's just so amazing.
It's funny. I took a break because at my previous job, we always had a booth here at NAMM, and that was 15 years ago or so, but I went for 8 years straight, and setting up the booth, tearing it down, manning the show. It's exhausting. I was a little NAMMed out from those years. And then I took a break. Like when I started Haversack Designs in 2009, I don't think I came to another NAMM until 2019. like a 10-year break. But it's funny coming back because you do end up seeing the same people that I did a decade before, but they might be at a different role. Or
they're just 10 years older.
Yeah, they're just 10 years older, a little grayer and stuff like that.
They've got a longer, weird ponytail.
Ponytail's on this side instead of that side. But yeah, it's always fun to be here. It's like I'm going to go tomorrow morning and be able to see the show for a little bit. And otherwise, we're filming a lot of things in LA, a lot of studio tours and stuff. But yeah, NAMM it's a different thing. I remember when I was going every year, all my friends that were in music, they were like, "Oh, you get to go to NAMM?" And
You're
after
like,
so many years, it's like I kind of have to. But now, since I took that break, it is kind of fun just to come back and not having a booth is a wonderful thing though, because I'm not.
I only stay for 2 days ever, max.
Oh, really? Okay, that's a smart
pro
move.
tip.
Yes, that's a excellent tip for people.
Don't stay very long, and also don't sit down. I know I'm sitting right now.
Yes.
But it's like you go, then it's the worst thing you can do.
Get on a plane and go back.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this. I know that it's out of the way and all that, but it's just a joy to have you here. And
thank you for having me, and I look forward to more adventures in the future.
Sounds good. That's been another episode of the S.O.U.N.D Project. Thanks for being a part of it. If you'd love to check out some of the work that Erin does, we'll link all of that in the description, and we'll see you next week.